I'm super fired up for yet another week of the Blue Zone. So it wasn't too long ago that I was inspired about the Blue Zones. I watched this amazing program, Live to 100, looked at Dan Butner's book, and thought, what an amazing take on what we're already doing in our lives. But it was just an amazing take about how to live a longer life. So I thought, how cool would it be if we looked at this sort of lifestyle plan and looked at the lifestyle and broke it down into smaller bites and said, okay, how do we make this work? Right? How do we implement this strategy into our daily lives? And so that was really the impetus of doing this. And at Qantas Life, that's what we try to do. We're always looking for ways about how to quantifiably improve our life, right? So Connection Catalyst is part of that program. And when I look around in our society, there's this sort of trend that's happening where we are engaging more socially, but we're less engaging personally. I hope you got that. So we're engaging with people on social media and everything else a lot, right? But but you might not know who your neighbor is. You might not know people in your own development or complex or neighborhood or something like that because we're communicating less. We're socially communicating more with people online, but we're doing less and less. And you can see it sometimes when you're sitting there at a dinner and you see an older couple and they're on their phones. Instead of talking to one another, they're on their phones. Look at a younger couple and they're on their phones. I mean, more people are on their phones communicating than they are necessarily the person right across the table. So it's an amazing thing to see how our society has changed. And so when we're talking about the community, the Connection Catalyst, we're really talking about some of the biggest moves that are happening in our world. So when we look at, the last 10 years, and we look at some of the companies that are just monstrous companies now, tech companies, most of those companies are software companies and technology companies. Those are the companies that are some of the largest companies, Meta, and Facebook and Twitter with Elon Musk and all these. They're monstrous. And why is that? There's a reason, that this connectivity and allowing people the World Wide Web and everything else, that this connectivity that connects us all, that binds us all, is what really drives this connection. And people are looking for connection. In fact, we all want it, but we're very busy. So how do we get connection, but we're busy? Well, i.e. social media helps out a lot in those gaps, bridging the gaps between I don't have a lot of time, but in my spare time, I can go ahead and watch Reels, or I can watch Instagram stories, or I can go ahead and connect with some people that I haven't seen before in a while. Instead of picking up the phone and calling them and asking them how they're doing, we're checking out maybe something on social media and therefore getting the information. There's no need to call them, right? But is there a need to call them? The answer is in the Blue Zones. Well, the short answer is yes. We need to call them, right? Because you need that connection. And so this is part of the Blue Zone longevity course itself in the totality. Phase 1, if you haven't seen our phase 1, don't worry. Visit our YouTube channel. Just type in Qantas Life in YouTube and find our channel there, and you'll see the courses for foundational habits. That's the Blue Zone Discovery, the Diet Decoder, the Fitness Fusion, and we actually did last week the Nature Navigator, and that was a lot of fun, and hopefully some people got some benefit out of that. Today it's Connection Catalyst, and next week we're talking about Stress Solver, and we all could use a little less stress in life. I know I can, I'm sure you can, and we're going to talk about how we can actually do that. But this week we're talking about the Connection Catalyst. So, and we really want to just basically forge meaningful relationships and social bonds, right? Without, trying to go out there and make new friends constantly, which can be taxing, right? So I just want to, for the cheap seats, for the people that don't know me, my name is Robert Shockey. I'm one of the founders at Qantas Life. And, I've always been into fitness and meditation. I have a few albums out there for meditation. I went on this journey of self-exploration and self-expression and spiritual walk, and also fitness was part of that. But for the most part, I was working internally, and during COVID, I had a break in that, and a break in connection with people and visitations and everything else, and it really like shut me down. It shuttled me down in my emotion, and it shuttled me down in my physical health, and I became like extremely overweight. I mean, I've never been to over 260 pounds, and I was over 260 pounds, and I was unhappy, and I didn't feel good. In fact, social media was like, I didn't want to be on social media because, I didn't think anyone would accept me being that large, and my face, I lost my jawline, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I just wasn't happy with the person in the mirror. And as you can see in the next slide here, I landed in the hospital, but it was because I allowed my body to sort of unravel its natural organism, its natural state of exercise and, getting out there and dancing and all sorts of great things that I was doing before my life and, traveling and everything else. And all that stopped. And I just became overweight and bad habits and, put me in the hospital, with anxiety issues and all sorts of things. So fast forward, I said, I'm going to make a change. And, I went about it and I lost a lot of weight. I mean, I lost almost 60 pounds, right? I put on muscle, got my jawline back, thank God. And, and really I changed my thinking, and then I changed my physical, and then I'm living a more beneficial life, right? A life that I want to lead, right? Not a life that I have to lead, a life that I want to lead. And there's a big difference in that. And we put this cheat sheet together so that you can reference this. If you don't have it, don't worry. We'll have it on download, so you can download it later, or I'll put the link in the description so that way you have it. But just reference this. It's part of one of the series, and it's very easy for you to look back on this and as a reminder and say, I need to get back out there. And so, as I always say, that this begins in the mind. What we think about, we bring about. How we change our perspective can change our reflection of life itself. So, our reactions causes that response in people and causes a response in our life. That corresponding. So, if you're putting out negative things, then negative things come into your life. It's just part of the plan. It's just part of how these things work. Even in the darkest days, we have to find gratitude for the things that we want in our lives, so that we can bring more of that in. I don't ask, my higher power for things. I thank and I'm grateful for the things that I have in my life. However little, however great, whatever it is, I'm just find my attitude of gratitude and pull more of that into my life. And I wish for those great things for other people. And so I want you to sort of get in this perspective, in the mindset, as we're looking at this phase here. And I'm going to read this to you. And it begins like this. Like a lone tree in a vast desert, thirsting for the embrace of the rain, so does the human soul yearn for the nourishing touch of community. To engage in the dance of social communion and partake in the feast of collective endeavors is to drink deeply from the wellspring of belonging. We are always looking for acceptance in other places. Sometimes that acceptance has to begin within, and then other people accept who we feel we are, and that begins within. But you can find your community, you can find people that see things as you do, but you have to seek them out and then align yourself with those same said people so that you can reinforce your way of thinking. Whether it's wrong or right, that's regardless. But you need people in your life that are willing to go ahead and support you in your thoughts and in your goals of your life. Find people with common thoughts. Once you find the community, you can breed within there. You can live within them, in that community, with people that are like-minded. But for most of us, we're very busy, and we really fail at creating meaningful relationships and bonds. I'm talking about meaningful, rewarding bonds. Really hard to do when you're very busy because you're so driven on your goals, not necessarily making connections a goal. And there's a real reason for making connections a goal. And it's because, maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed in making new friends. It might be a challenge for you to do that. You might be burned out by social interactions, right? gosh, I can't deal with this particular person or people anymore and everything else. It's time for change, right? When you say that, it's time for change. Just bing, time for change, right? Change people, change attitude, change places, change, make a bunch of different changes if you need to, because you can get frustrated by attending all these different community events. You could get frustrated by, constantly being in demand of your time and everything else, and you have very little time for yourself. And so you can get burned out. And actually in that burnout, you can feel isolated and not keep forging good, meaningful relationships. I'm talking about a relationship that actually rewards you, right? Like a rewarding relationship that every time you engage with that person, or multiple times they engage with that person as a mentor or anything else, a friend, something, there's this reward that happens inside, an endorphin kickoff, a dopamine release. I feel great. I get a value out of this interaction all the time. And, you have to examine the socialization and the community in the blue zones. And so we're just going to circle back into the blue zones and take a look at how they're living their lives and how important community and family and tradition is. And cultivate and strengthen the personal relationships for better mental and physical health. Because that's really what we're talking about, mental and physical health. Because you have to have your mind good, solid, right? And then focus on your physical health as well. So maybe you want to engage in group activities and shared experiences to foster, a better connection with people. It's possible. So you have to examine the role of socialization and community in the blue zones as we take a look at that and take a look at what they're doing in Okinawa, and take a look at what they're doing in Sardinia and Ikara in Greece, right? And take a look at that and say, how does that pertain to me? I don't live in Sardinia, this little tiny town. I don't live in the coastal area of Greece. It's remote living. Right? I live remotely. I don't live near a lot of different people. Maybe that's one of your obstacles, right? I have social anxiety. I am an introverted kind of person, or I lack confidence, right? So, those are all valid reasons, all valid obstacles, and you may be dealing with that right now. Just know this: you're not alone. There's many, many people that have these same issues, but not necessarily attack it the same way or approach it the same way. So we have to look at, examine the role of socialization and how does it benefit, having new friends, in your life, or without having to go out and make new friends all the time. Who's already in your life that could benefit you? And so what we're really trying to do with this is we're trying to improve our lifestyle. That's really what we're trying to do. So if that's what we're trying to do, then we need a goal. And we need a reason why we're planning to do this, because all this takes extra energy and effort. So what do I get from taking all that energy and effort? What's my why? I need to have my why. Why am I doing this? Is it just to live longer? Great. So you live longer. Fantastic. Awesome. You live longer and you're by yourself. You're miserable. I don't know if I want to live longer. I'm miserable and by myself. I don't have any quality relationships. So why live longer if you don't have quality relationships in your life? If you're not contributing in some way to this world, to this planet and everything else? Where's your role? What is your purpose? What is that? What is that? So don't get depressed about it. Just use that as an impetus to say, why? Why am I doing this? And here's a couple different ways to look at the reason why. Integrating this into your life as we look at the people and their successful, long-living longevity in the blue zones, how they're connected generationally, right? But they have this sense of community as well, and that support them in this. And it's not just in those blue zones, but as new blue zones and new cities are adopting this philosophy and communities are adopting this philosophy of life, this is sort of the cornerstone of what they're getting out of it. They're getting group, and I'll just read it right here as you can see on the screen. There's structure in this, right? There is group frequency, right? There's contact. There's intimate relationships that you're getting the emotional bond from this. You can find identity and value in your point of view and your person and validate that, right? And it becomes more like a standard where you're looking at how I'm looking at my life, right? How do I fit within this group, right? How do I participate in this group? You might feel like you're alone a lot, but in reality, you're not. You could be part of something bigger than yourself. And in doing that, find value in those relationships. So when we examine, these lovely ladies, lovely ladies from Okinawa, Japan, right? They look very happy. And I believe that they are. I think that smiles happen when people are generally happy. Some people can put on a fake smile. I'm sure that's possible. But I'm just saying, generally, very happy and rewarding. Why is that? It's because the transmission of health promoting culture transitions and values, right? This is the aspects of the Blue Zone. These include dietary habits, physical activity as a part of daily life, and they practice fostering mental health and well-being, because this interaction, this reinforcement with people in their minds keeps them healthier, keeps them happier, because they say, well, do you remember when? And it fosters that memory recall that happens, right? So cultivate and strengthen your personal relationships. How do we go about that, right? Well, every time we go about that, we say to ourselves, well, we've got this issue, like what's holding us back? So when we look at those issues that are holding us back, maybe it's, again, being accepted, right? Or maybe tolerating other people, or even knowing where to go, where to look, right, for help. So we can cultivate and strengthen personal relationships for better mental health. That could be your why. Or physical health, which should be your why, right? Without forcing social interactions. Don't force yourself into this. You can evolve into this little by little. And so, but how do we do that? Like, okay, that's great. Okay, I found my why because I want to be valued. I want to be accepted. I'm willing to tolerate other people's point of views. I'm willing to go ahead and do that. Where do I begin to start doing this? What is my action? Where's my CTA, as a call to action, right? And so you can look at places like your churches and volunteering, things that you can do in your lifestyle. One, it helps with when you volunteer, you meet a lot of people, right? You learn different perspectives about helping other people. It's rewarding, and it's social engagement. And that's in itself, whether it's religious or spiritual activities, you can participate in spiritual religious communities, provide additional support, stress relief, and a sense of peace and acceptance. And such engagement has been associated with longer life, right? Here we go. So it's just, how do we find those groups? Well, you can find those groups on social media, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, but there's a whole bunch of groups and meetup groups that you can look at. And then also take a look at who's in your life that might be a little bit older and generationally. One of the things I loved to do when I was a kid is get around older people. I used to think, people at my age were like extremely old. But I would even go older. I would go to my neighbor where my grandmother lived, and I'd go to the neighbor, and I would sit with the Kranskys, and they would tell me stories about living during Depression times and stuff like that. And I thought that was so incredible. And they would tell me these amazing stories of struggle and strife and everything else and how they overcome things. And it was just inspiring to me. I just love stories. But for them, it was rewarding because here's a little kid who wants to hear about all their lives. And so they were always inviting me over, and it was this community kind of thing that was happening between them, and a sense of love, right? Love and acceptance. But when you do this and you look in the Blue Zones, they show this in integration and intergenerational connection with people. They take care of their elderly. They stay connected to the elderly. It's a direct link to their past to know who they are today, and the roles in their families and the communities. So this integration helps to ensure that elders remain active and feel valued and contributing to their own physical and mental health, but also yours too. There's a benefit for you as well. And so a study that was shown in the journal of Gerontology, you can try that one on your own, Gerontology, found that adults who regularly spend time assisting or socializing with elderly individuals show a 23% reduction in stress hormones, that's cortisol, found a significant increase in feeling of social connectedness and life satisfaction. 23% lift. Okay, I'm only asking for 1% change per day, but this is a 23% improvement in your life. If you can reduce stress by 23% in your life, you're improving your longevity, point blank. That's what you're doing, right? And so you can engage in group activities also to sort of get the same kind of experience and everything else. And it fosters better connections, right? So when we take a look at like, engaging in a group, there's definitely a couple things there, right? The fear of unknown, scheduling commitments, right? We're trying to fit it into our life, and the lack of empathy. And lack of empathy can be a two-way street. How much we give to other people, how much caring that we can do, and this transfer of feeling and emotion, compassion for other people, this empathy value system is very critical. So you could have not enough for other people, but they could show you what empathy is, and therefore you can embolden your own life with empathy. And then if you're more empathetic, there's more caring going on in your life for yourself and for other people, and the value proposition there is way more rewarding. So you can find online groups, and as you can see here in this slide, you can find online groups and support groups and topics that really concern you. You can get involved in, and you can meet some people with very similar ideas than you. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. That's not for me. It's a higher power to go ahead and decide what that is. That's above my pay grade. But as long as you're engaging in something positive that's going to leave a positive feeling within yourself and for other people and enhance their lives, I think it's a good thing to pursue. That's just me personally. That's my personal belief. That's why we're doing this course, actually. So I hope it's benefiting you. Engaging in group activities and shared experiences to foster community connections without attending every community event. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to go out there all the time and deluge your life with events that just preoccupy your life but don't necessarily reward you. It's really interesting. We have high schools, all these different high schools and colleges, and I live near. I'm in Florida, so I live near a number of different universities, and I always see games. There's outdoor games all the time. There's soccer games and football games, and there's all these people that are doing outdoor activities and stuff like that. You can go down to the beach. You can watch volleyball. You can go down away here and watch people playing soccer and everything else. You don't necessarily have to be, part of that school or part of that college or even part of the group that's playing volleyball, but you can be around it and you can get involved in it and you can watch it. And coincidentally, you could meet somebody that also has that shared point of view. They actually like it. Super Bowl weekend's coming up, so I'm sure you'll be sitting around watching the big game with a bunch of different people, and the engagement's great. I mean, that's why it's such a big deal. Everybody gets together and watches the big game. When I lived in Panama, it was the same thing. We used to watch football, but it was with your feet, right? It's the real football. and we watched Colombia play and everything else. It was like a big deal for everybody to get together, and it is a big deal. You can create a lot of friends this way. When I was in New York, I used to go to the Australian club, and there was always a cricket game going on. And I'm not a really big cricket fan. However, there was a lot of amazing people in the Australian pub in Manhattan and watching cricket, and it was just fun. It was just fun to hang out and meet people in business. And I met some great people, and expands. So we have to look at what that means, though, from a clinical standpoint. What does it really mean? Like, what is this really doing to us on a physical and mental health? Like, anecdotally, we feel great, but what does it mean? So a study in the Meta-Analytic Review published in the PLOS Medicine found that strong social relationships associated with reduced risk of mortality, suggesting the significant health benefits of social connections. The study emphasizes the importance of considering social relationships as a major health risk factor, comparably to smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. That's significant. That's huge. Social interaction and lack thereof being compared to smoking, obesity, and lack of physical exercise. That's amazing. So on the other side of things, you also want to consider on the other side, right? And the +1 examine the impact of social relationships on depression, and finding that negative social interactions, particularly with spouses or partners, significantly increase the risk of depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, while positive interactions have the protective effect, the exact opposite. So what kind of What kind of relationships do you want in your life? Good, positive relationships. Find those. If it makes you feel bad, if you're in a toxic situation, just examine the fact that you are in a toxic relationship in any kind, of any kind. Formulate a plan of exit from there, right? And then look at, but what do I want to replace it with? And oftentimes when we look for support in other places with like-minded individuals, we find the strength to remove ourselves from toxic situations. And by removing ourselves from toxic situations, we find ourselves on a trajectory of a better life, a better lifestyle, better health, better mental health. And therefore, you want to invest more in the quality of life and the quality of people that you're around. This is the value of what we see in the blue zones. This is one of the reasons why they live longer, because they have a reason to live longer, because they have people that care and depend upon them and value them. And we value you. Thank you for joining us today. So here's your homework to put into yourself. Here's some of the homework. Examine the role of socialization in the community and the blue zone populations. Look at your own life and determine your own exposure and level of readiness. Are you ready to make that change? Just examine yourself. Just question yourself. Cultivate and strengthen your personal relationships for mental health and physical health. So pick up the phone, call a few people, call people you haven't spoke to in a while, just to say, hey, listen, I just want to make sure that this is the number to reach you. And oh, by the way, how are you? And what are you doing? And how's life? And share that with me and talk to them. It's so rewarding to reconnect with old friends. Do it. Do it today. Find 2 friends this week that you're going to do. Cultivate, contact old connections, as I just said, and look up for meetup groups and volunteer opportunities that you have in your local, whether it's church-related, spiritual-related, could be anything. Just look for some volunteer things. Even if you only do it once, try it, test it, see how it feels. Maybe that's not the right group for you. Try another group. It's okay to sample. So engage in group activities and shared experiences to foster community connections. So get out there. Involve yourself with a little bit of time. Go watch a game. Look at what's going on maybe in a college near you or a high school near you. Not everybody in the stands are parents. Some people are just in the community and they just love watching the games. Get involved in some of those things. You'll be surprised who and what you find within yourself and in the crowd. But let's zoom out. Let's just pull back and take a look at this. This is one piece of the overall longevity course. So next week, as I mentioned, please join us Saturday, 2 p.m. Easterns. You can join us by visiting goblue24.com. Register there. You'll get the Zoom link. You can reach out here. We'll send you the Zoom link. But if you need help, you could obviously reach us at support@Qantas Life. And please subscribe, put a like on this video if you can. It helps us reach more people. It helps with the algorithm, as they say. And it helps us reach more people just like you. You only need to look to find them. Qantas Life is here to help you stay mentally and physically healthy, to support you in your journey for the future. Because really that's what we're looking for. Healthy, mentally, physically people helping each other have a better, quantifiably better life. That's Qantas Life. Thank you so very much for watching us today, and look forward to seeing you next week